Trump's tariffs. What they mean for Canada's economy and immigration. Welcome back to Canada Chronicles. In this video, we're diving into a story that could reshape Canada's economic and immigration policies, Trump's proposed tariffs. These steep 25% tariffs on Canadian imports aren't just about trade, they could redefine industries, impact Canadian households, and transform the policies that welcome newcomers to our country. Stay tuned as we break down the ripple effects of these tariffs, from economic strain to immigration challenges, and explore proactive strategies to ensure Canada's resilience. Don't miss our deep dive into the immigration fallout, where we'll reveal how these economic shifts could influence Canada's approach to immigration. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to Canada Chronicles and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update on the stories shaping Canada's future. Let's get started. The looming tariff threat. Trump's proposed tariffs, set at 25%, have triggered alarm across Canadian industries and households. These tariffs, tied to border security and trade imbalances, could make Canadian goods far more expensive in the U.S. market. For a nation whose economy relies heavily on trade with its southern neighbor, the consequences could be severe. Canada and the United States have long benefited from a mutually dependent trade relationship. Canadian exports fuel industries, create jobs, and support growth on both sides of the border. However, with these tariffs, Canadian goods would become less competitive, potentially crippling industries that drive the national economy. Let's examine how these tariffs could impact key sectors and, ultimately, the Canadian way of life. Economic repercussions of Trump's tariffs. Canada's trade-dependent economy under pressure. Nearly 75% of Canada's exports are destined for the United States. For sectors like automotive manufacturing in Ontario, the imposition of tariffs could disrupt supply chains and drive up production costs. Vehicles assembled in Canada would face higher sticker prices in U.S. markets, forcing buyers to look elsewhere and resulting in layoffs at home. The forestry industry, another cornerstone of Canada's economy, would face steep challenges. Canadian lumber plays a vital role in the U.S. construction sector. With tariffs raising costs, projects in the U.S. might slow down, while Canada's lumber industry would see diminished demand, job cuts, and community-level economic strain. Sectoral struggles and ripple effects. Canada's energy sector, a major contributor to the nation's GDP, is one of the industries most exposed to the risks of U.S. tariffs. The country supplies a significant portion of U.S. crude oil through an extensive pipeline network. Tariffs on oil could disrupt this trade, increasing fuel prices in the U.S. and forcing Canadian producers to seek alternative markets in Asia or Europe. The transition, however, would take time, resulting in immediate job losses in Alberta and reduced government revenues. Farmers across Canada would also feel the squeeze. With tariffs raising the cost of Canadian agricultural goods, products like beef, pork, and dairy could struggle to compete in U.S. markets. This would lead to oversupply at home, driving down prices for farmers and increasing financial strain in rural communities. Small businesses, often overlooked during trade disputes, would also bear a significant burden. These enterprises frequently supply larger corporations involved in exporting goods to the U.S., and as larger businesses scale back operations due to tariffs, the demand for goods and services from small suppliers would diminish. This cascading effect would threaten thousands of jobs and push small businesses to the brink of closure, especially in regions already dependent on export-driven industries. Additionally, the forestry industry could face broader ecological and economic challenges. Reduced exports might lead to a slowdown in logging operations, leaving valuable timber unused. This could increase risks of forest fires and pest infestations, exacerbating environmental and financial issues. The inability to capitalize on these natural resources could leave provinces like British Columbia struggling to stabilize their local economies. This wide-reaching impact highlights how deeply interconnected sectors are within Canada's economy. When one industry faces disruption, the effects ripple outward, touching everything from local businesses to global supply chains and even environmental management. Understanding these cascading effects is crucial for policymakers working to mitigate the fallout of tariffs. Impact on Canadian households. The effects of these tariffs would ripple through households, creating financial pressures. Job losses in major industries like manufacturing, forestry, and agriculture would reduce household income, particularly in regions that depend heavily on trade, such as Ontario, Alberta, and British Columbia. As the Canadian dollar weakens due to declining export revenues, the cost of imported goods would rise. Families would see increases in grocery bills, fuel prices, and everyday essentials, compounding financial strain. Discretionary spending would decrease, slowing economic growth further. In addition to financial strain, communities reliant on trade-heavy industries would face social challenges. Towns built around manufacturing plants or forestry operations might see rising unemployment rates and reduced local government revenues. These conditions can lead to school closures, reduced public services, and an erosion of community morale, deepening the long-term impact of economic instability. Beyond the immediate economic implications, families may delay major life decisions, such as buying homes, starting businesses, or pursuing higher education, as financial uncertainty grows. This hesitation can have cascading effects, slowing housing markets and reducing demand for services, further weakening the overall economy and creating a cycle of deferred growth. The immigration fallout. Thanks for staying with us this far. We appreciate your time and hope you're finding this information valuable. Now, let's shift focus to a critical aspect of these economic changes: Canada's immigration system. Economic strain and immigration adjustments. Canada has earned its reputation as a global leader in immigration, welcoming thousands of skilled workers, international students, and refugees annually. However, economic downturns often force governments to recalibrate immigration policies. In 2024, the Canadian government announced modest reductions in immigration targets to address housing shortages and infrastructure constraints. If tariffs further weaken the economy, expect deeper cuts to categories like economic class immigrants, international students, and temporary foreign workers. This could reshape the workforce and slow integration efforts. Public sentiment and political pressure. Economic instability often fuels public debates around immigration. During periods of job scarcity, newcomers are sometimes seen as competitors for limited opportunities, leading to calls for stricter immigration controls. This sentiment is already influencing Canadian policies. Recent campaigns have warned potential asylum seekers about the challenges of making claims in Canada. If tariffs exacerbate unemployment and economic strain, we could see a push for even stricter border policies and reductions in refugee admissions. Challenges for international students. International students are vital contributors to Canada's economy, adding billions annually through tuition fees and living expenses. Many also transition to permanent residency, filling labor gaps in key industries. However, rising living costs and limited job prospects could discourage students from choosing Canada. Tighter post-graduation work permit rules or reduced residency opportunities could further diminish Canada's appeal, impacting universities and local economies that rely on international students' contributions. Strain on immigrant settlement services. Economic challenges often lead to reduced funding for services that help immigrants integrate. Programs like language training, housing support, and job placement assistance are critical for newcomers. Budget cuts could hinder integration, leaving immigrants vulnerable to unemployment and increasing social tensions in communities. Navigating the crisis. Diversify trade relationships. To reduce dependence on the U.S., Canada must strengthen trade partnerships with Asia, Europe, and other regions. Expanding agreements, such as the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, would help Canadian goods access new markets and reduce vulnerability to U.S. tariffs. Invest in domestic resilience. Boosting domestic industries through innovation is crucial for adapting to these challenges. Incentives for advanced manufacturing, renewable energy, and small businesses can help create high-quality jobs. Supporting businesses through financial assistance and research grants would foster resilience and promote economic recovery. Refocus immigration policies. Canada's immigration system must align with economic needs. Prioritizing skilled workers in sectors like healthcare, technology, and green energy ensures that newcomers address labor shortages in critical areas. Balancing economic immigration with family reunification and humanitarian programs is essential to maintaining Canada's global reputation as a compassionate and welcoming nation. Strengthen U.S.-Canada relations. Open dialogue with the U.S. is vital for addressing trade tensions. Collaborative measures on border security and joint enforcement efforts can ease concerns while preserving Canada's trade interests. Diplomatic efforts must emphasize the mutual benefits of free trade and the shared risks of economic disruption. Support workers and communities. Providing direct support for workers impacted by tariffs is crucial. Retraining programs, wage subsidies, and targeted development initiatives can help affected industries recover and reduce the social impact of job losses. Trump's proposed tariffs present a serious challenge for Canada, threatening industries, households, and immigration policies. However, Canada has the tools to navigate these turbulent times. By diversifying trade, fostering innovation, and aligning immigration policies with economic realities, Canada can build resilience and emerge stronger. Thank you for tuning in to Canada Chronicles. If this video gave you valuable insights, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who needs to know. If you're new here, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an update on the issues shaping Canada's future. We'd love to hear your thoughts. How do you think Canada should respond to these challenges? Let us know in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay informed and take care. See you in the next video.